Jeremiah here with Damian Kettlewell, who's the non-medical marijuana spokesperson for the BC Private Liquor Store Association, a group which has made a partnership with the BC Government and Service Employees Union to ask for permission from the government to sell marijuana at liquor stores when we have legal marijuana sales allowed. Damian, good to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Jeremiah.
So, Damian, why are liquor stores the place to sell marijuana?
Well, that's a great question, and we believe that the sale of non-medical marijuana should occur in the most socially responsible way possible in an age-controlled environment with the strongest track record of checking identification.
Right, so we're talking about minors here. That's something obviously that's very important at all of the liquor stores. You know, you get carded and everything. But I mean, does it take a lot to check an ID? Why is it that that's something that's complicated?
Well, it's a lot of it comes down to the fact that we bring to the table a multi-generations of experience in selling a legal controlled substance, which is alcohol, and we believe that experience will be critical to the rollout of non-medical marijuana sales in BC. So a lot depends on what happens on the federal scale and with the provincial, federal, and territorial task force, and a lot depends on if the responsibility is assigned to the provinces. But we haven't led the way on this as far as speaking out. The Premier of Manitoba has indicated that he thinks that the sale of recreational marijuana should occur through liquor stores, and as well the head of the Ontario Public Service Union, government union, has said as well that he believes the sale of adult use medical marijuana should occur at liquor stores, and so we're the third region to speak out, the third liquor sector region to speak out in this capacity.
And so now, what would this mean for, say, the producers of marijuana? I mean, where would you guys get the pot from?
That's a great question, and it is a complex production environment at this stage with the 26 odd federal growers under the MMPR program, and then the growers under the MMAR program that are still growing. But the alliance is focused on. We believe in having producers of all sizes, many of them local, creating jobs in their communities and selling to a central wholesaler at the LDB, and then distributing via the LDB to public and private stores. So, production is a complex regulatory and production environment. It's not easy to produce quality product, and so we don't pertain to be experts in that, and we are focused primarily on retail, and we will buy from producers that are approved by the provincial or federal government, whoever that may be.
Right, so that could be any multitude of different things, including the larger LPs or the smaller mom and pop kind of things.
Yeah, that's we don't really know where it's going to go, but we believe that the production should occur. The wine and the beer, craft beer and craft wine sectors have been quite healthy in BC, and ironically, there's about 270 vineyards in British Columbia, and those vineyards, about 70% of those are small vineyards, and they don't have the critical mass to get access to the LDB. And so what happens is that they sell directly to the private liquor store channel. There's 671 private liquor stores in the province, and so they're quite clear, the small and medium-sized vineyards, that they really value the private retailing of liquor. They really value that distribution means because they can deal directly with owners, they can directly with smaller businesses, and it really propels a lot of the revenue growth and allows us to survive. If it wasn't for the private liquor stores in BC, even the small vineyards have been quite clear. They don't think that they wouldn't be fiscally sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I saw your quotes about supporting home growing.
Yeah, that's happening in wine and beer, in the wine and beer sector, of course, and we believe that, keeping in the lessons learned in Colorado and Washington, that it's important to have an allowance for small-scale, non-commercial, personal production of a few plants. So, those matters are making their way through the courts now, and but we're we think that we're fortunate because the jurisdictions to the south of us have moved ahead more aggressively on recreational marijuana, and they've mostly rolled out very successful programs. There's been a few hiccups, which is bound to happen when you're dealing with a new controlled substance. But in general, there's a lot of things we can learn from them down there.
Now, you mentioned how many locations. So how many would theoretically be selling marijuana right away?
Well, right away, I mean that would be there's almost 200 government liquor stores, and so that would be a question for Stephanie Smith and the liquor distribution branch that run the almost 200 government stores. But as far as private stores are concerned, that would be. We'll see what happens as far as regulation, the design. I mean, when we design a new liquor store or we renovate a liquor store, all of our plans have to be approved by the Liquor Control and Licensing Board, and we have to meet strict regulatory guidelines to ensure that the product is sold in a safe and responsible way. And so we would anticipate that there would be design programs in place. You have to meet certain standards to be able to sell non-medical marijuana. I'm not sure what those would be at this point, but I imagine we have to meet those standards. And so, number one, there's two things. I don't think 100% of all the private liquor store retailers would want to sell marijuana. I can't speculate as to how many would. I imagine a good number would. And then number two, you have to be able to meet the provincial or federal standards, whatever they might be, to ensure it's retailed in a responsible way.
Now, would this give liquor stores in the province a monopoly over non-medical marijuana?
I don't think so at this point. I don't think it's a monopoly when there's 900 retailers. That doesn't meet my description or definition of a monopoly. But
well, what I mean by
time will tell. Time will tell where things go.
What I mean by monopoly would be that because right now there is a moratorium on creating new liquor stores, it would just be the liquor stores that are already there that would be allowed to participate.
Well, we would have to see. I mean, the government puts in place supply management licenses in the fish industry, in the dairy industry, in the milk industry, in the taxi industry, in the liquor industry. So we're simply one of these government-generated licenses. And these private liquor stores have been around since the early 80s. They started off with beer and wine, and then we kind of morphed it to be able to sell liquor. And so it's been an evolutionary process. And it's important to point out as well, Jeremiah, that this is a unique retailing model across Canada, where we have a combination of almost 700 stores and almost 200 government stores. It's different. Alberta is all private, and then you're going across the country, it's all a little different. Ontario is mostly there's beer stores that just sell beers, I'm sure you're aware, and then there's government stores, liquor stores. So it is different. And the comments that we received from the public are, I think it's been interesting on a call yesterday with CFAX in Vancouver Island. There seems to be a preference for long-term medical cannabis users. Some of them are concerned about cannabis selling next to alcohol because they're primarily cannabis users. So I think that's something that needs to definitely be taken into consideration. But when you look at when the legality is in place, there's going to be a lot of new consumers that come on board. So I would encourage people, in the cannabis industry on the producer side to consider that, because people are comfortable shopping in liquor stores for the most part, and so as long as it's designed in a responsible way, I think we need to be aware of those new consumers that are going to come on board. A lot of people who have shied away from it, but might want to try it since it's a legal substance. So those are the sort of things that that we'll have to consider. The province and the government will have to consider.
See, for me, I would totally be willing to support a system where everybody is allowed to take part in it. And that would be a free market system. What I would worry about is a system where, the liquor producers know about liquor and they're very good at, distributing liquor and doing that kind of thing. Marijuana is very different in the product and the product knowledge that goes along with that. It's very specific and it can take years. And in fact, people have dedicated their whole lives to this subject, just like people who make alcohol have and who are in that industry as well. So it seems odd that, in my worry would be that we would be handing this over to the alcohol people and not allowing for those other people to take part in it for however long that moratorium is there, or if they're, the monopoly question I think is going to be the big one for the community, because why should we trust the liquor stores to know about products with marijuana products?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be. We have a very intensive product training program in our sector. There's, you might be aware, you're probably aware. You need to get a certification, a provincial certification called Serving It Right to be able to sell liquor, and everyone who works in a liquor store has to get that. We are on the watch for intoxication. We can't sell to intoxicated persons, and we're on the watch for retailing it in the most socially responsible way possible. So, as far as selling marijuana, I agree it's a different product. Has different psychoactive. It's psychoactive more so than liquor, and there would have to be product specific training on means to sell it responsibly. But I'm confident. I mean, we've got some great bureaucrats, great civil servants in Victoria, and we've got a great knowledge base in British Columbia, and I really believe we can craft a great retail and we can create a great sort of retailing certification system in place for those folks that work in these parts of the store and not selling non-medical marijuana. So yeah, I'm optimistic and hopeful that the provincial government. I mean, this has always been a significant industry in BC, and I hope that we can utilize a lot of that intellectual capital that's already in place and use that to design a best practice system. If we look at right now, I mean, the Premier just had 15 people, experts preparing her climate team sort of solutions to help BC meet its greenhouse gas emission goals, and they just put out a significant report. So I'm not sure what the federal government, provincial government is going to do, but I imagine that they're going to assemble a group of experts, and they're going to listen to. They've already indicated on their task force they want public health officials, they want addiction specialists, and they want safety experts, so impaired driving and MAD and all. They want all these forces and all these stakeholders to come together and make their recommendations. And so it'll be interesting to see how long this takes. It could be take a while. It could take a long while. We've stated with our alliance that we're hoping to retail non-medical marijuana in Christmas of 2016. So we've put that out there. That's our goal, and we'll see what happens today with the throne speech, and we'll see what happens with the task force. And there's a lot of things that have to unfold over the next while for marijuana to be sold. Non-medical marijuana to be sold. So it's going to be a process.
Now, about would there be the possibility of having a system like right now as it stands? The moratorium on liquor stores deals with liquor, and it's about limiting how much liquor there is. And of course, there's going to be a different amount of liquor than probably marijuana. They might be more demand for one than the other. So is it possible? Would that moratorium automatically apply to the cannabis side as well as the liquor side?
I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I can say in regards to liquor stores, the beer and wine stores evolved for liquor primaries, and liquor primary is basically a pub, which is just basically a restaurant now. But if you had a liquor primary license in the early 80s, you could apply for a liquor retail store. So that's how the liquor retail model evolved in British Columbia. And I don't really know how it's going to. We're business, and we're the business sector, and the BCGU represents 68,000 union workers across the province. So, we're saying that we're enthusiastic about retailing non-medical marijuana in the most socially responsible way possible, and I'm very hopeful that those folks who have all that knowledge in BC that is in place in regards to cannabis, continues to participate in the sector. But on the bright side, I mean, our medical marijuana system, the federal licensing system, is regarded as one of the two best systems in the world. So we have an excellent, in regards to quality control, in regards to and good manufacturing practices. The Israelis and the Canadians supposedly have the two best federally mandated production systems in the world for medical marijuana. So there is that basis there, and I would certainly hope that we would be buying from more than 26 producers, and I think that
right.
it's gonna happen. And even in an interview yesterday, one of the Pamela from DFAX has said, this product has been has helped communities grow, and it's been a huge income and job generator in rural communities. And I think that the Premier will be cognizant of that, and I think she'll design a responsible non-medical marijuana retailing system.
Mm-hmm. And you guys don't want to affect anything to do with bars or things like vapor lounges. This is just retail sales.
This is just retail, yeah. We're staying away from that, yeah.
Great. Well, Damian, I mean, this is definitely an exciting thing. The thing that looks good to me about it is the momentum that we would have. I mean, with you guys already have, you guys are established. You have the locations, and I know that there's some dry counties, things like that don't have liquor. And I think you were quoted as saying that there'd be the possibility that some counties wouldn't have marijuana either, but that, it's very few usually that would opt out. And so the momentum that you guys have would probably help the pot community a lot,
I really think so, and I would encourage those long-term folks working in the sector for a long time to be open to the sale of cannabis in liquor stores, and really consider the new consumers coming to the marketplace. Not that you're not the traditional historical consumers. There's going to be a lot of new consumers coming in, and to really retail that and to make those folks feel comfortable, I think it would be best for the sector to sell it in an environment that they're comfortable with. And I think the industry is really going to have to weigh in on how it can be merchandised in a store properly. It's just, the cannabis product industry has evolved so much in the last 5 to 10 years in regards to all these different edibles and oils, and it's really a diverse product offering. So
and it's not related to liquor at all, really. In fact, that's the other question I wanted to ask you was, isn't there a downside to selling what's a relatively harmless plant with virtually, the harms that come from marijuana are very, very small when you compare them to liquor. Liquor is considered by scientists to be more dangerous or more harmful to you than heroin and crack and things like that. So,
well, I think there's definitely, it's a controlled substance, and if it's not consumed responsibly, then it's very damaging. It can have a lot of addiction, can cause a lot of problems. But if you look at, you're well aware that the level of THC that's grown in this new product, I believe, is called Shatter. If that's consumed in the wrong way, that can be harmful as well. And in Colorado, with the edibles, some of them have been consumed by children. The packaging hasn't been appropriate. So,
but if you consume things
I agree
together,
with you on the dangers of alcohol, but also in regards to cannabis, I think it has been proven that it does delay brain growth to those folks up to 25. It's harmful to your brain, and similarly to alcohol is. It's the doctors say don't have more than 2 ounces of alcohol a day, and there hasn't been enough research in cannabis because it's been illegal for so long. We don't really know what the safe amount is, but have you seen those stats that they recommend you don't use cannabis until
I've seen them
until around 25?
Actually,
your brain is still developing.
There's a great study that an activist named David Malmo-Levine, who's a great activist and researcher, has done, and for Cannabis Culture magazine, and actually it's been published now as a book. And what David did is he looked at all of the studies available, all of the ones he could possibly find, and he got the help of psychology professors and others to help him find all of those studies. And I don't want to get too deep into it, you should read the study, but it was the study of the studies. And what David found is that most of those studies, with the exception of maybe 2 of them, did not hold up to scientific criteria to actually be able to hold any water. When you put these studies to the real test, they rarely ever have any sort of, in the end, by the time you're done through with all of it, anything you can really use to actually show anything to do with the development of young people's minds. There's a lot of propaganda, and in fact, a lot of the people who are doing these studies, this is a big issue, and it's actually a really large piece that David wrote. That's why it was published as a book eventually.
Nice.
But yeah, that's something to look at, and I think there's a lot of course, with marijuana, there's a lot of stigmas, there's a lot of hysteria, and there's a lot of special interest groups who have reasons for wanting marijuana to remain in this status it is in now. So there's been a history of a lot of that stuff too. But that's a whole nother issue. I think.
No, I fully believe in the patient-doctor relationship as far as treating specific medical conditions. I definitely, science has proven that. And but the THC level has grown exponentially in product over the last 15 years. So it's just good to be cognizant, because we don't want people to have a negative first-time experience with cannabis. When you have these new consumers coming to the marketplace, we don't want negative experience. We want them to be positive experience. We want them to consume the proper dosage amount, and that's going to be part of the education process, and make sure that it's a safe and pleasurable experience. So the rollout is a positive experience for consumers. So
when it comes to that whole side of things, I think I'm really with you that I think we need to make the environment safe for everybody to be able to use these things. But when you look at the history of cannabis and you look at how it's been used up till now, it's been the Wild West of cannabis, essentially. There's not a lot of people checking into hospitals for cannabis, and there hasn't really been a heck of a lot of problems with people using cannabis on any level at any time, especially when relative to any other kind of drug or a substance like alcohol. But what it really comes down to is we want to make this available for everybody as much as possible that wants it, that's going to use it safely. And if the liquor store, why should we stop the liquor stores from selling it? They should be able to sell it just like everybody else should. It's just the whole monopoly building thing that I have the problem with.
Yeah, I think, I think public addiction and public health specialists and professionals, they seem to suggest that it's good to have a good amount of tax on these products, so to make things to support our healthcare system and our education system, and the access to liquor, at least they suggest that it shouldn't be retailed everywhere. So I think that there should be limits on retailing and distribution. So there will be it'll be interesting to see what the experts say. I don't claim to be an addiction or a public health expert, but I look forward to learning from those people on the safest way to retail non-medical marijuana. And one issue we have, Jeremiah, is impaired driving. The province has made great strides. It made some excellent public policy on lowering the alcohol blood content level to 0.05, and that is one of the challenges we have with marijuana. We don't have it effective. It's been illegal for so long. There hasn't been proper testing done to determine, how we can determine if someone is impaired when they're driving. Our alliance is definitely, keenly focused on that, and we want to work with Matt and ensure that there are these tests in place, because, I'm a father, and I just want to see it consumed safely.
See, Damian, I really feel that one of the things about lumping marijuana in with alcohol is I really don't want to start considering them as the same substance. And I can hear in your talking points and some of the places you're going here, the angle that you guys are taking. You're really trying to make marijuana and alcohol sound like a similar thing in a lot of ways. But what I really think you might have more success with, especially with our community, is if you pay attention to the major differences between marijuana and liquor, and that includes, the whole driving issue is one, and we definitely need a way to, with all people, anytime anybody's impaired on any substance, and that includes pharmaceuticals, but they have impairment testing for that. So I'm not convinced that we need some sort of a chemical, I actually think that's unscientific, the nanogram limits in Washington and things like that. When scientists look at these things, they do admit that it's not very scientific. But so, alcohol is one thing. It's a little bit more of a consistent blood alcohol ratio deal. But, but it's different people have different sizes. I've always been an advocate of impairment testing, not necessarily drug testing.
But, good point.
Yeah, and when it comes to marijuana, I really think in our community, the pot people, we don't want to be treated like liquor people, because we know pot's not the same as liquor. When we're talking about the dangers and stuff, like to kids, fetal alcohol syndrome and the damage that liquor does, it's not quite the same as marijuana. And in places like Amsterdam, they do separate marijuana from liquor in a very specific way, so that they don't associate those two things in that same way. But I hope I like where you guys are going with this. I just hope that we don't get into that whole idea of saying that marijuana is the same as alcohol, because it's definitely not.
Right. No, I think that's a good point. And where our industry is definitely open to learning all about a safe way to do it, and respecting those consumers in that community that's worked a long time in the sector. But I'm hopeful that the producers in the supply chain in the cannabis sector realize that there's going to be the market's going to triple or quadruple when it's legal, and there should be great job opportunities for all those folks who want to operate in a safe, secure, and responsible sector. So that's where we hope to be going together.
Well, fast-changing, exciting times right now. Damian, thanks so much for coming on. I'll definitely be checking in with you as much as possible about this issue as we move forward.
Thank you very much for having me on, Jeremiah.